Hello and welcome to the podcast of the Prison Officers Association, Britain's largest professional trade union for staff working in prisons and correctional centres, public and private mental health services, trust providers and immigration services with nearly 35,000 members. In this episode, we look back at the POA's involvement in the annual Trade Union Congress, which took place at the beginning of September, with General Secretary Steve Gillan. Steve reviews the progress of the union's motions on the right to strike and the Safer Inside Charter, and sets out why Congress is such an important event in the union calendar. Steve, was it a good trade union Congress for the POA? The union submitted motions on the Safer Inside Charter, on the Employment Relations Bill and the right to strike. Did these motions secure Congress support?
Yes, both motions went through unanimous, but I think it was more important that we spoke clearly on what the POA expected in this. So if I could start with the Employment Rights Bill, it was a motion that we feel very strongly about. Of course, the Labour government have introduced through the Employment Rights Bill issues of protection for workers. The Employment Rights Bill is good for workers as long as it's not watered down. My big issue is that what's clearly omitted from that is the right to strike for prison officers within England, Wales and Northern Ireland. The reality is, for me, this has got to be addressed. It's now 31 years since we've had them ripped away from us, a basic fundamental human rights. We will be continuing our campaign in respect of this. And I think Congress fully understand it now. And I think some trade unions fully understand as well that they need to step up and be more vocal behind the POA as well, especially those unions that are affiliated to the Labour Party. So that was a very important motion to go through, and there will be actions from that in the coming days and weeks, so as that we raise the profile on that again. The Prisons Charter one, again, supported by many unions who are involved in the Prisons Charter, from educators such as UCU, obviously the POA, PCS, various other unions that we have support of. And it's very basically simple. It's about rights at work, to not be assaulted, to reduce the violence, to make things better in the workplace. And we want respective employers to sign up to that charter and for government to sign up to the charter as well. So yes, it was a very productive Congress for the POA, and we attended many fringe meetings as well, which we either chaired those fringe meetings or we spoke at them. So yeah, all in all, a good couple of days for the POA.
Because, of course, the subjects of the motions are very well known by POA members and activists, but perhaps not so well known by the wider trade union movement. The absence of the right to strike in the Employment Relations Bill is a hole that's gaping and needs to be filled. And the Safer Inside Charter is all about insourcing and effective buildings maintenance, as well as violence in the workplace. So I imagine it must be very reassuring and also sort of cheering for the POA to be able to reach out effectively to sister unions.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because when you look at the delegations that come to Congress, these are ordinary activists from different trade unions. So the general secretaries and national officials of those bigger trade unions will fully understand the issues pertaining to prisons and us not having the right to strike. But maybe the ordinary activists didn't, because there was lots of people coming up to me afterwards, didn't really understand. They thought everybody had the right to strike in the UK. So it took us painstakingly time to explain that 31 years ago we had that ripped from us in the Criminal Justice Public Order Act under the Tories in 1994. And yet a Labour government have had two opportunities now, once in 97 to restore it, and again, latterly, last year, being able to put right the wrong that's been done to us, but have failed to do so.
So you mentioned that the motions were adopted unanimously and that there were a number of fringe meetings. Who from the union's delegation spoke? Who went down particularly well if it's not telling tales out of school?
Well, I think we all did, to be fair. I think Mark Fairhurst spoke exceptionally well on the prison's charter. He chaired the Justice for Columbia fringe meeting. I spoke at the Morning Star. I spoke at various other ones, the Trade Union Coordinating Group fringe meeting, and one or two others. Dave Todd spoke very well on motions as well at Congress, as did Mick Pimblett. Everybody had an input, and I just think it was the two delegates that came from the field, Kirsty from Stanford Hill and Jeff from Low Newton. It was an eye-opener for them. They thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was a lot different from what our conference is like. I think they enjoyed the week mixing and networking with other trade unions.
If you could distill down what the value of the TUC Congress is for the POA, the week of the Congress itself, what would it be?
I think the value of it is for a small trade union to be heard in amongst the bigger unions. But I'm very much a person who believes in the collective, and it's great to be a collective part of the trade union movement because Congress is the showpiece. And I've got to say, there was some good publicity coming from Congress in the media, and that's the beauty of being affiliated to the TUC.
In between sessions of Congress, the TUC policy is governed by the General Council, and above that, a smaller Executive Council. For the first time, the GC and EC, and indeed Congress itself next year, will be under the presidency of the POA and Steve in particular. TUC Assistant General Secretary Kate Bell told us about the importance of the TUC presidency.
Well, it's a really important role. Perhaps the most important thing it does is it chairs our annual Congress. So you'll know that our annual Congress is the Parliament, it's the democratic heart of the TUC, and it's the role of the President to chair that 3 days of proceedings. But throughout the year in the run-up to the Congress, they also chair our Executive Committee and they chair our General Council. So it's holding the reins, I guess, of those important democratic functions of the TUC. It's also, though, about representing the TUC to the external world. So our president will often speak at our equality conferences, represent the TUC in important meetings with government, sometimes represent the TUC abroad. That's the thing presidents have done in the past. But it's really, holding the reins at the helm of our organisation and making sure its democratic functions, which are, of course, absolutely key to what the movement is, what the TUC is, are carried out.
I asked Steve about his hopes and expectations for the year ahead. Steve, you are going where no POA official has gone before. What are you looking forward to in your year as the TUC president?
I think it raises the profile of the POA. It's not about me. It never has been. Of course, I'm proud to be the TUC president. I'm equally proud to be the POA General Secretary in my fourth term. But it's never been about me. It's about the collective in the POA to make the lives better for them and their families, and we must never forget that. But yeah, this is an opportunity for the POA to have, once again, its voice amplified. And if I can do that as TUC president and influence government on a variety of issues, not just on prisons, on the Employment Rights Bill, I look forward to speaking to senior officials on that. But trade unionism in general, I think that's what it's about having the collective head. I mean, it's often been said there's 5 to 6 million volunteers that join a trade union. And that's very true. It's the biggest voluntary service going, actually, because no one forces you to join a trade union. You do it through choice. So to have 5-6 million people in the United Kingdom voluntarily joining a trade union, I think we punch above our weight, not just the POA, but the trade union movement in general. If we can influence the CBI, if we can influence the Bank of England, if we can influence those that hold the power in government as well, because no one gives trade unions anything. We've always had to fight for it. From day one, we've always had to fight. And this is about time that we rolled up our sleeves and started fighting. Otherwise, we're going to leave a void, and reform will step in there, which they already have, because there is that void. There's a disconnection between people in the communities and government that some people feel as if they've been left behind. But if they believe that people of the ilk of reform, made up of millionaires and God knows what, and business people, that they're interested in ordinary working class communities, then I think they need to step back and fully understand. Of course, they play into people's fears, and we've seen that. Tommy Robinson, Stephen Yaxley Lennon, call him what you may. I don't see how working class people can have anything in common with a man such as his ilk. At the end of the day, I hold him in contempt, really. And we've got to expose these people. We've got to expose them for what they really are. But at the same time, we've got to say to government that you're getting this wrong. You are leaving people behind. That's why they're looking for the void to be filled, even if it's a void that are telling people lies, that there's no simple solution to difficult questions. There's no simple answers. And I feel at this moment in time, what Labour are trying to do, they're trying to out-reform reform, and I don't think they can do that. What they've got to do is stick to proper, decent policies that actually make people's working lives better in the communities, with better housing, better prospects at work, instead of precarious jobs. Make sure that people feel part of the United Kingdom. That doesn't mean that they've got to wave their flags and different things. I mean, that's just a pretense. There's nothing, shall I say, that just because you wave a flag makes you more patriotic than someone else. You can be patriotic without waving flags. Patriotism, to me, comes in many forms, such as watching out for your local community, being nice to people, making sure that you respect other religions, that you respect different nationalities, and you don't fall for that old three-card trick about divide and conquer and so forth. If I'm lucky enough to be invited to different union conferences and trade councils and different things up and down the country, I will make, hopefully, time to do that. And there will be messages that are delivered. Do I think that everybody that attended the Robinson rally that was funded by the right wing, of course do I think they were all racist? Of course not. So, but I think they've been sucked in to a narrative that's getting out of control, quite frankly. And I think step by step over the next year, because I think it's over this next year, we've got to dismantle these arguments. And this Labour government have got to step up and start delivering for working people. There's no doubt about it. The disabled aren't our enemy. The pensioners aren't our enemy. Neither are asylum seekers. Neither are migrants. So we've got a big message to get out there, but it's about decent housing. It's about cutting the waiting lists on the NHS. It's about putting money in people's pockets so that they actually feel better off and make sure that they are better off, because what's round the corner is unpalatable. And there's a tsunami coming towards us, and that tsunami has been fueled as well by the likes of Elon Musk and others from around the world who should have no place in British politics, quite frankly. But if their voice has been heard, then the trade union voice must be heard, quite frankly. And we've got to be at the forefront of that to make sure that we speak for the disabled, for the pensioners, for our children, and for those who don't have a voice, to make sure that government are looking after their interests better than they have been, quite frankly.
Kate Bell is clear it's going to be a busy year, but is looking forward to working with Steve and the POA.
Well, I think Steve's going to be a great president. It's been brilliant working with him on the executive and the general council. over the last few years. We know he's passionate about prison officers, but also passionate about the wider trade union movement and workers' rights. And it's a really important year for us this year. We've got the Employment Rights Bill due to get royal assent, hopefully in the next couple of months. But then, of course, there's a whole load of secondary legislation, and we've got to start implementing that bill. You know, that bill gives new rights for unions to go into workplaces, to access workplaces and organise more workers, new collective bargaining rights. We as a movement have got to think about how we actually use those rights to grow. So critical challenge there. You'll know the rise of the far right. The far right and the populist right is something that is worrying, I think, most trade unionists across the country. And we've got a big challenge there. We do have an anti-far right strategy, but taking that forward, I think, is going to be something we're really going to want to be putting to the forefront over the course of this year. And then, of course, our campaign for a strong economy and public services is critically important as well. You know, we're still seeing the legacy of those 14 years of Tory austerity. We'll be seeing that in the prison service. We're seeing it in local government. We're still seeing it in the health service, in our schools. And the campaign for fair taxes to put that right is something I think will be at the heart of Steve's presidency as well.
My thanks to Kate and to General Secretary Steve Gillan. It sounds like an important and busy period ahead. To find out more about the POA's involvement in the TUC and the full range of work undertaken by the union on behalf of its members, visit poauk.org.uk, where you can also find information on how to join the union if you are not already a member. Thank you for listening. We hope that you have enjoyed what you have heard and will join us for the next episode of the POA podcast. Thank you and goodbye.